looking at Swift optional variables here. We start off by asking, is there a case in Objective-C where a variable can have a value but never be nil? And the answer is no. Whoa, how do you make this work? Like that. No, and the point is, that's the problem that Swift optionals are trying to solve. Objective-C pointer variables can behave in two very different ways depending upon whether there's a pointer pointing to an instance of a class versus when there is no pointer value at all. For example, you can pass a message to a nil pointer and have it do absolutely nothing, which is not what you expect, even though that's behaving according to the rules. So I got that one. What does sum t return from an optional variable enum? So an optional variable enum can contain two values, sum t or none. When it contains sum t, then sum t returns the value of that variable. The unwrapped value of the variable, that's correct. There are three kinds of unwrapping. What's it called when you unwrap with the exclamation point? Where we've defined John as being of type person, and person is an optional. When you unwrap it with the exclamation point, it is called a forced unwrap, and you get the value of the optional. Forced unwrapping, you get the instance. And there it is. What's it called when you run a block dependent on an optional value when assigned? So let p equals John, then this would be followed by some block that you'd be executing if this was equal to something. And the answer is a optional binding. What's it called when you fire off a method based on a value in an optional variable? That's called optional chaining. What happens if John is nil at runtime when we do this? Then you get an error, a runtime error. Yep. If a variable has been defined as follows, var John person optional as a variable, then does John first name access the first name property? No, it doesn't, because you haven't unwrapped John. What you'll get is the enum. What's the usual way to unwrap in this case? Using an exclamation point on John. Just like that. Forced unwrap. An optional variable's two possible values are sum t and none. An optional variable is defined with a question mark. I think I arranged these in reverse order of difficulty. Sum t and none compare to what in an Objective-C variable? To a pointer variable that has an instance and a pointer variable that has a nil. When you define an optional variable with an exclamation point instead of a question mark, what's that called and what does it do? It's called an implicitly unwrapped variable, I believe, and it gives you the instance immediately. Implicitly unwrapped optional. There we go. Why is this needed? I've got to go look this up again. I believe it's because of legacy cases in Objective-C frameworks, but I'm not sure about that. I know it's also used on custom classes that we write. An optional variable can have two possible values, sum t and none. There are three kinds of unwrapping.
1, 2, 3.
Didn't I do this already? It says now I have 16. Anyway, you get the idea. Yes, I already did this. I wonder why it's doing it twice. Huh, I haven't completely mastered this app yet. Oh, you know why? Because I didn't check off that I had finished learning them. Okay, I get it now. When you answer a question, you have to check, or else the program will repeat the questions. You can also set it to run the questions by you automatically. Nice.